There was a time when an empty space inside a wall did more work than most modern cooling systems. No wires, no machines, no noise. Just a deliberate gap hidden between layers of brick, quietly controlling heat, airflow, and comfort in a way that feels almost invisible today. It looked like nothing. But that nothing was the entire system. And once you understand what that space was doing, it becomes difficult to look at modern walls the same way again. Today, when heat builds inside a home, the response is almost automatic. A switch is flipped. A machine hums to life. Windows are shut, curtains are drawn, and the goal becomes simple. Trap cool air, block hot air, and let electricity handle the rest. But this approach often treats the symptom, not the source, because the heat you feel in a room is not only coming from the air, it is coming from the surfaces around you, especially the walls that have been absorbing sunlight for hours. And here's the part most people overlook. By the time a room feels hot, the walls are already storing energy. They are acting like slow-release heaters, quietly radiating warmth back into the space long after the sun has moved on. So even when the air cools down outside, the room can remain warm. Not because the outside temperature is high, but because the structure itself has become a reservoir of heat. Older builders understood this long before thermostats existed. In many traditional homes, especially in regions where the sun was intense and consistent, walls were not built as single, solid masses. Instead, they were designed in layers, two separate walls with a narrow gap between them. To a modern eye, that might look inefficient. Why use more material? Why create a hollow section that seems to do nothing? But that hollow section was the entire strategy. In these older designs, the outer wall was exposed directly to the sun. It absorbed heat just like any surface would. But instead of that heat passing straight through into the interior, it encountered a break, a pocket of air. And air behaves very differently than brick or stone. It does not conduct heat well. It slows the transfer down. It delays it. And in many cases, it did something even more important. It moved. Small openings at the top or bottom of the wall allowed air inside the cavity to circulate. As the outer wall heated up, the air in the gap warmed slightly and began to rise. That rising air would escape through the upper opening, pulling in cooler air from below. This created a gentle, continuous flow, barely noticeable but constantly carrying heat away, before it could reach the inner wall. No switches, no maintenance, no cost after construction, just a quiet system that worked all day. This is where the method becomes more than just a construction detail. It becomes a way of thinking, because the goal was never to block heat completely. That is almost impossible in a hot climate. The goal was to control how heat moved, how fast it traveled, and where it went. That difference matters. A solid wall tries to resist heat, but eventually absorbs it. A layered wall manages heat, slows it, and redirects it. By the time warmth reaches the inner surface, it is reduced, delayed, and often less noticeable. And sometimes, it never reaches it at all. The science behind this is simple, but powerful. Heat moves from warmer areas to cooler ones. In a solid material like brick, this movement happens through conduction. The molecules in the material pass energy along, one to another, like a slow chain reaction. Over time, heat travels inward, but when you introduce an air gap, you interrupt that chain. Air is a poor conductor compared to solid materials. That alone reduces heat transfer. But if the air is allowed to move, convection adds another layer of protection. Warm air rises, escapes, and is replaced by cooler air. This movement carries energy away instead of allowing it to build up. And then there is timing. Even when some heat does pass through, the delay matters. If a wall takes several hours to transfer heat from the outside to the inside, the peak warmth may arrive later in the day, when outside temperatures are already dropping. This reduces the overall impact on indoor comfort. That sounds subtle, but in practice it can change how a space feels throughout the day. In many traditional homes, especially those with thick walls and shaded exteriors, interiors remained relatively stable. Not cold, but consistently cooler than the outside environment during peak heat. And at night, when temperatures dropped, the structure could release stored heat back outward or dissipate it through airflow. But here is something even more interesting. This idea was not limited to one region or one style of building. Variations of this approach appeared in different parts of the world, often developed independently. In some places, the gap was wider. In others, it was narrow and tightly controlled. Sometimes it was combined with reflective coatings, shaded courtyards, or strategic openings that enhanced airflow. Different materials, same principle, and that tells you something important. The method was not based on tradition alone. It was based on observation. People noticed how heat behaved, and they adapted their structures accordingly. So why did this approach fade? It did not disappear because it failed. It disappeared because something else became easier. As construction methods modernized, speed and standardization became priorities. Solid walls made from uniform materials were quicker to build. Reinforced concrete, pre-made blocks, and simplified designs reduced complexity, and in many cases, the cost of labor became more significant than the cost of energy. At the same time, electricity changed expectations. Instead of designing buildings to stay comfortable on their own, it became acceptable for them to rely on external systems. Air conditioners could force a solution even if the building itself worked against it. There was also a shift in how space was valued. In dense urban environments, even small increases in wall thickness could affect usable area. Developers often chose thinner, solid walls to maximize interior space, especially in apartment buildings where every square meter mattered. And then there is knowledge. Traditional building techniques were often passed down through practice, not textbooks. As construction became more industrialized, that hands-on understanding faded. The focus shifted from how materials behave to how quickly they can be assembled. The result is what we see today. Walls that are strong, uniform, and efficient to build, but not always designed to manage heat naturally. But the principle itself never stopped working, and that means it can still be used. You do not need to rebuild your entire home to benefit from this idea. The lesson is not about copying old structures exactly. It is about understanding the role of layers, gaps, and airflow. If you have a wall that receives strong sunlight, the first step is to recognize that it is absorbing energy. That heat will try to move inward. The question becomes, how can you interrupt that path? One approach is to create a buffer layer. This could be as simple as adding a secondary surface with a small gap between it and the main wall. The gap does not need to be large. Even a narrow space can reduce direct heat transfer. Ventilation can enhance this effect. If the gap allows air to move even slightly, it can carry heat away before it builds up. This could involve small openings, or simply ensuring that air is not completely trapped. Shading also plays a role. If the outer layer is protected from direct sunlight, it absorbs less heat to begin with. Combined with a gap, this can significantly reduce how much warmth reaches the interior. But here is the mistake many people make when trying to apply this today. They focus only on blocking heat, not managing it. They seal everything tightly, thinking that insulation alone will solve the problem. But if heat still enters and cannot escape, the space becomes stagnant and uncomfortable. The older method worked because it allowed controlled movement. It created a path for heat to leave, not just a barrier to keep it out. And that is a subtle but important shift in thinking. But this is not a perfect solution. In very humid environments, airflow behaves differently, and moisture can become a concern. If a cavity traps damp air instead of allowing it to circulate, it can lead to other issues over time. Proper ventilation becomes even more important in those conditions. In tightly packed urban areas, external airflow may be limited, reducing the effectiveness of passive movement. And in modern sealed buildings designed specifically for air conditioning, introducing airflow without planning can interfere with how those systems operate. There are also structural considerations. You cannot simply alter walls without understanding how they are built. Some walls carry loads, and changes must be approached carefully. In those cases, it is safer to apply these principles externally rather than modifying the structure itself. And sometimes, modern systems are simply more practical. In extreme heat or in spaces where precise temperature control is necessary, mechanical cooling provides reliability that passive methods alone cannot match. But that does not make the older method irrelevant. It makes it complementary. Because when a building helps manage heat on its own, any additional system becomes more efficient. It runs less often. It uses less energy, and the space feels more stable, even when the system is off. This is what older builders understood without needing complex calculations. They worked with the environment instead of against it. They used space itself as a tool. An empty gap, a small movement of air, a delay in heat. Things that seem insignificant until you feel the difference they create. And maybe that is the most important part of this forgotten method. It reminds us that not every solution needs to be visible or powered. Some of the most effective systems are the ones you never notice working. They are built into the structure. Quiet, consistent, reliable. We often think progress means adding more technology, more layers, more control. But sometimes it means understanding what to leave open, what to separate, what to let move. Because that empty space inside a wall was never truly empty. It was doing the work we now expect machines to do. And once you see it, you start to notice how many problems in modern life come from sealing everything too tightly, from blocking movement instead of guiding it. If this kind of forgotten practical knowledge still matters to you, then there is always another layer waiting to be uncovered. Another simple idea that quietly solved a problem long before we replaced it with something louder. And the next one might be even simpler than this.